Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about Algebra 1 review. So this is a package to review all the concepts going on in Algebra 1. And we're going to do this before the STAAR test. So the first part is how to translating algebra. 7 increased by a number. 7 increased means added by a number, which is dx. The number is x and 7 increased. 12 decreased by a number. So 12 decreased is subtract a number. 11 more than a number. So that 11 is more than that number. So x plus 11. 5 less than a number. 5 less than a number. X minus 5. 7 more than twice a number. Twice a number is 2x. So 7 more than that would be 2x plus 7. So 2x plus 7. The product of 5 and 3 times a number. So the product here means multiplication. And then 3 times a number is 3x. 3 times x again. So it would be 5 times 3x. The difference of a number and 15. Difference here means subtraction. So the difference, the subtraction of a number and 15. So x subtract 15. Okay, let's talk about some polynomial rules when we have the like terms and how we have to combine these like terms. So over here, the example that we have has a parenthesis subtract from another parenthesis. So what do we do here? We basically, if we had a positive here, we didn't have to do anything. We would just get rid of the parenthesis and add the like terms. But here, because of this negative, is a -1. And that means this negative multiplies or distribute to every single one of these terms inside the parenthesis. So that would change to -3x to the third, -2x, and negative is positive 9. So therefore, when you have to add like terms here, you see that 2x to the power of 2, there's only 1 left. Same as -3x to the third. So we don't have any like term of these two. We're just going to write it down as -3x cubed plus 2x squared. And then we have -5x and -2x, which is -7x. And then -1 added 9, it would be +8. That's how you add or subtract a combine or the like terms, or how you combine like terms, okay? Distribution is the same as I just mentioned it over here. When there is a number before parenthesis and there is no symbol like addition, subtraction, anything over here, that means this number should distribute inside the parenthesis. What distribution means? Basically, it's the multiplying that number to every term inside of it. We talked about it over there. There you go. So -1/3 of 12x is -4x. -1/3 of -9, negative and negative is positive, and 1/3 of 9 is 3. So there you go. Let's talk about some equation and inequality. So solving equation and inequality. First of all, when you have equation, that means you have equal sign. When you have inequality, that means you have this symbol, greater than or less than. Okay, depends on your equation. So over here, when we have equal sign and we have only one type of variable, for example, here in the whole thing, you just see x. Here, you just see x. You don't see x and y anywhere, okay? In that matter, you can use math up and a graph on your calculator. I'm going to show you. You can solve it like the way that we did it up there, combining like terms, but because during the STAAR test, there's like 60 questions and you don't have time to spend on these easy questions, let's just use your calculator to solve it for you. So basically, you go ahead and click on math. Then you go ahead and click arrow up. And then you do enter. There you go. These two boxes means that you have to put this first expression before equal sign on the first box and then the second expression after equal sign into your second box, and then you do graph, no enter. Okay, so let's just do it. So we have 15 plus 6x, and then you move to second one, you do 45 plus 8x. Okay, then you click on graph twice. Graph. And what is your x equals to? Negative 15. I'm not going to do these two because that's the same way that you do, but I'm going to put the answers over here. I already found it, and you can check your work using your calculator to see if you get the same thing. X equals negative 7 for that one. Okay, let's talk about some inequality. For inequality, you'll not be able to use your calculator to solve it. Why? Because if you divide or multiply by a negative number, you have to flip the symbol. But if you use your calculator, it wouldn't know when to flip this one. So I don't recommend using calculator to do the same thing what we did over here, doing it over here. So you have to solve this by hand. So how do you do it? You simply just move the like terms by themselves. Like for example, I always tell my student that these are friends, so they need to be together. So I'm gonna move this one over here, or I can subtract negative x. If I draw my line, I subtract negative x from this side to be able to get rid of that x and move it over here. So therefore, I would have x plus 2 less than or equal to negative 5. Now it's 2's term to move over here. So I would do negative 2 on both sides to be able to get rid of it over here. And therefore, I would have x less than or equal to negative 7. Sometimes I get that question that how do I know this is less than or how do I know it's greater than? Okay, if you'll be able to write down less, let's say this is the symbol of less than. If you can be able to write down less, then that would be less than. Okay, in this case, we have less than or equal. That bar over here means equal. Okay, so that's a solid line. We're going to get to that soon. Now, over here, we didn't have to flip the symbol here, but here we do. So let's do that one. First thing I have to do, I have the number before parentheses. So the first thing is to distribute that over here. So I will get negative 15x. Negative and negative is positive, and it would be 21, and then greater than 54. Now I have to move this one over here. So I would do subtract 21, and I will get 15x, negative 15x, greater than 54 minus 21 is 33. Okay. Then I have to divide this by negative 15 to be able to cancel it. So therefore I had x by itself. So I'm going to do the same thing. If I do something here, I have to do it on the other side too. So negative 15 on this side too. So I would get, okay, that's the part that is very important. Remember I told you that if you multiply or divide by a negative number, you flip the symbol. Did I divide by a negative number? Yes. So flip happens here. So I would have this one flip over here, and then I would get x less than 33 divided by negative 15 is negative 2.2. That would be the answer. Okay, let's move to the next page. Here we're going to talk about form of equation. We do have two forms that mostly we'll talk about during the stat. So the slope-intercept form and a standard form. Slope-intercept form, as you can read, has slope and y-intercept. So we're just going to write it down like this. Y equals mx plus b, which m is your slope and b is your y-intercept. The standard form, on the other hand, is ax plus by equal c. And over here, a, b, and c is our constant. As over here, we can see m and b is our constant. What is constant? It's just a number, okay? Slope. When we're talking about the slope, there's 4 different types of slope: positive, negative, zero, or the word that nobody allows to say it in my class. So let's talk about that. When you read a graph, when you have a line, you have to read it from left to right. When you see this or move from left to right, is it going up or going down? It's going up. So therefore, the slope should be positive. When you're reading this one from left to right, or when you move from left to right, it's going down. So this one is negative. When we have a horizontal line, the slope is simply 0. And when it's like a vertical line, it's like falling down from a cliff. It's that word that nobody's allowed to say it in my class, but I'm just going to write it down. Okay, now let's move to, when we're talking about the slope, there are different other key features on the graph. When we're talking about graph, there's the slope and there is y or x-intercept. So what are those? Let's say we have our graph. When it passes through your x-axis, that point intercept over there is your x-intercept. So there you go. That's your x-axis, and that's your graph. So the point that intercept between these two lines is your x-intercept. And the coordinate for it is -3 and 0. But the y-intercept, on the other hand, is the point that happens between y-axis and the graph line. So that's your y-axis. And the line passes through that y-axis. That point is your y-intercept. We usually call it B, okay, which is that B. So the coordinate for this one is 0 and -2. By the way, the x-intercept has multiple names. We call it 0, we call it root, we call it solution. This point has a lot of names, so you need to remember. Sometimes in a STAAR test, they say, okay, find the x-intercept. There you go. But sometimes they say, what is your zeros on that graph? They're talking about x-intercept. Sometimes they just like to say, what is the solution of this graph? They're talking about x-intercept. So they're calling it different names, but they're all the same thing. Now, how do we write an equation if we have a slope and a point, or if they're giving us 2 points? Or how do we find the slope if we have a parallel line or a perpendicular line? Okay, let's talk about that. So when we have a slope and a point, it's easier to graph it for yourself and find the second point. It's always easy to have 2 points to find your equation. Why? Because you can put this one in your calculator and stat edit and find your equation. But here we only have 1 point. But using rise over run, we can find the second point. Let's just graph it. Let's assume that this is our -8. And then that's our 5. So the point is somewhere around here, -8 and 5. Then we know that m is rise over run, and it's 1/2. Meaning you move 1 from this point up and 2 to the right. So 1 up, 2 to the right. So that is the other point that we have in this graph. And the coordinate for it is -6 and 6. Just like that, I found my second point, -6 and 6. Now, I have 2 points. So, I can use my calculator to find my equation. How? I'm going to go ahead and just clear this one. I'll go ahead and do stat edit, remember? To be able to see my table. Let's clear this table. Delete, delete, delete. This one, delete, delete, delete. So on the first one, I'm going to put -8 and -6. These are my x values. And then on my y values, my first one is 5 and my second one is 6. I'll check my work to see if they're match. So -8 and 5, -8 and 5, -6 and 6, -6 and 6. Okay, it's good. So I have to do now stat, calc. This is a line. So line is number 4. So I will go to number 4, click enter. I'll go all the way down and it gives me my slope and my y-intercept. So I will write it down. My m is 1/2 and then my my y-intercept is 9. Therefore, if I have the y equals mx plus b, I can rewrite this as y equals half of x plus 9. So I'm going to write it down over here. You go ahead and find the point 1, which is this one on your graph. Then do rise over run to be able to find your second point, point 2. Then you enter those 2 points inside your calculator using stat, edit, enter data, and then you do stat again, calc, and go all the way down, enter all the way down, and you will find these 2 information to be able to put it in this form. Okay, so now your equation is y equals half of x plus 9. If you have 2 points, that's easy. You just start with stat, again, enter those points. So I'm going to go over here, delete it, go over here and delete it. So my x value is 4. My other x value is -1. And then my y value for the first one is -3. And my y value for the second one is 2. There you go. Now I check my work. 4 and -3, -1 and 2. Then I do stat, calc. This one is line, so I will go to number 4. I enter all the way down, and there you go. I got my A, which is my M, equals -1, and my B, which is my y-intercept, is 1. So the equation for me is y equals mx plus b. So I have y equals -x plus 1. If they ask for a standard form, standard form is ax plus by equals c. So you do have it in a form of y equals mx plus b, and you want to enter it to this form. Okay, the only thing you have to do is that y and x is on one side of equal sign. So the only thing you have to do is move that x over here. So therefore it would be y plus x equals 1. But the standard form always has x at first, so you can just put x plus y equals 1, which is the same thing, really. Okay? Now let's talk about this. So if you have a parallel line, that means 2 parallel lines, they have the same slope. So if the m, or slope for the first line, is 2, the parallel line m is also 2. If you have a perpendicular line, okay, that would be opposite reciprocal slope. So opposite right? So what does that mean? Opposite reciprocal slope. Opposite means that number should be negative, and then reciprocal means you put 1 on top. You just flip it. Okay? So negative 1 over 3 would be the slope of the second line, which is perpendicular to the first line, like this. So if this is your line, the second line that is perpendicular is this line. Okay? But the parallel line, if the line is like this, the second line should be like this. They never reach each other, but they have the same slope. Okay? Okay. Let's talk about the next fact in Algebra 1, which is the system. System, when they're talking about system, that means we should have two equations, not one equation. So, over here, and those two equations should be in a form of y equals, both of them. So then we can draw the line. Okay, this one is in a form of y equal mx plus b, but this one is not. So what do you have to do? You have to make it to look like this form, which is y equals mx plus b. So the first thing you do, you draw your line to be able to solve it for y. Okay, what do? You subtract x from both sides first. Why? Because you want to get rid of that x. Therefore, you would end up with negative 2y equals negative x plus 4. Now, what do you have to do? You have to divide it by negative 2 because you want y to be by itself. So if you divide it, you're basically getting rid of it. So there you go, negative 2. So that way I will get rid of that. And then my equation would look like, I'm just going to write it down over here. Y equals, negative and negative is positive, so it would be positive 1 over 2x. 4 divided by negative 2, positive and negative is negative, so it would be negative 2. So that would be my equation for the second one, for this one. Okay, I'm just going to write it down over here. So the first one equation is 2x plus 1. The second one is half of x minus 2. Correct? Now, how do we graph it? You can use your calculator. Simply put your y equal and put these two in there and then graph it for yourself. Okay? And find a solution. When they're talking about system, they're talking about solution, which is your x-intercept. Or, for the system, when we have two equations, when they're talking about solution and they're asking for solution, it's the intercept point. Where those two lines intercept. Okay, so over here, I can use my calculator, but it's actually very easy. So I'm just going to show you how to graph it by hand. So the first one, the b or y-intercept is positive 1. There you go. Then your rise over run is 2 over 1. So I go 2 up, 1 right. 2 up, 1 right. So 1 right, 2 up, 1 right. There you go. So that is my line for the first equation. Easy peasy. Okay? Now, for the second equation, my y-intercept is at negative 2. So I would start from here. And then my rise over run is 1 over 2. So 1 up. That's positive, right? Yes. 1 up. 2 right, 1 up, 2 right, 1 up, and it should be over here, and it should be over here, and over here. So the line is like this. Okay? What's their intercept point or intersect point, or where they touch each other, is this point here. And that point is -2 and -3. So that is your solution, -2 and -3. We call this solution. Okay, let's say you have a very hard equation. Use your calculator. I'm just going to show you for this one how you use it. So basically, you go to your y equal and you enter those equation in there. The first one is 2x plus 1. The second one is half of x minus 2. You graph it. You see it match with our graph, but how do we know what's that point coordinate is? There you go. This calculator made it easy for us again. Remember second trace? It has all the values that we're looking for, or solutions, or whatever you call it. The intersect point is number 5. So when you click on that, you have to click enter 3 times. 1, 2, and 3. There you go. So the intersect is -2 and -3. Okay? So we found the solution using our calculator. Let's move to the next. It says write a system of equation for the following scenario. A business rents cars for $150 a day and vans for $300 a day. One day, it rented a total of 30 vehicles and made $5,700. Okay, so we know that cars and vans are the two things that we're dealing with, right? So the cars and the vans. So we know that these are the two things that we're dealing. So let's say we know that cars are $150 a day and vans are $300 a day. So therefore, the numbers goes by numbers. The amount or money goes with money. So if we call cars C, and if we call vans V, then we know the total of cars plus V is 30. And also, we know that the amount that they do for that 30 cars is 5,700. So the total of 150 C, $150 for cars, plus 300 V for the vans equals to that much money. There you go. I found my two equation. It just says write a system. So there you go. I write down my system, which is this one and this one. I'm not going to solve it. It didn't ask me to solve it, so I won't waste my time. Okay? Always read it and see what is it asking you to do. Don't waste too much time on it. Y less than 2x minus 4, 2x plus 3y greater than equal 3. Okay, now it wants you to graph it for sure, but you still have to solve it. When they're giving you a system like this, you have to solve it and find your intersect point. So let's solve it. Over here, we do have, by the way, this is the inequality, right? Inequality, when you have inequality, it has to be double shaded area. And that is your solution. So the solution on inequality is a double shaded area. So what am I talking about? Let's do this one first. So y less than 2x minus 4. Let's draw that one. We know that b is, or y-intercept is -4. So I have it here. And then I know my, what is it? The rise over run, or my slope, is 2 over 1, right? It's 2 over 1. So it would be 2 up, 1, 2 up, 1, 2 up, 1, 2 up, 1. Is that right? So I just found my line, which goes this way. But if it doesn't have equal sign, that should be dashed. Dash line, right? So it should be like this. Okay, that's my dash line because it doesn't have equal sign. Now this one didn't solve for y. So what do we have to do? We have to solve it for y first. So let's do that. We're going to move 2x, so -2x on both sides. So we get 3y greater than equal to -2x plus 3. Right? Now we have to divide all by 3. So the equation for that one, I'm going to write it down over here, is y is greater than equal to -2/3 of x plus 1, because 3 divided by 3 is 1. Okay, so I found my second equation. Now I can draw my line. What is the beginning point? Is my y-intercept, or b for beginning, right? Remember that. So it's at 1. So there you go. That's the point that I'm starting. Then my slope is -2 over 3. Rise over run. My rise is -2. So I'm going 2 down and then 3 to the right. So let's do 2 down, 3 to the right. So that would be the next point. 2 down and 3 to the right is here. 3 left, 2 down. And there you go. 3 somewhere right here, right? So my line is like this. Okay, so when I draw it, let me just turn this around so I can be able to draw the line. Otherwise, I can't. So there you go. That's my line. Now, we know somewhere around here they touched each other, but we're not positive, right? Because we're doing it by hand, so it's not going to be very clear to see which point is the solution. So there you go. I have my calculator to be able to graph it. But one more thing. This one is solid, right? Why is it solid? Because I have equal sign here. Okay, remember that. Now, I'm gonna enter it in my y equal, just to see what is my intersect point. I should change that to intersect. I don't know why did I put so let me see, second trace. It should be intersect, not intercept. That should be intersect point. Okay, well, you guys know what I mean. So now let's just enter this one. It is y 2x minus 4, and then Negative 2 over 3 plus 1. Graph it. Oh, I forgot to put the x. That's why it's doing that. Yes, I forgot. So over here, I'm going to do delete x plus 1. Now graph it. Okay, I forgot the x. There you go. Now, let's see what is the intersect point. So, second trace, 1, 2, 3, guess, yes. So there you go. It is at this point, okay? So, we're going to say the solution for that point is at that point if it was equal sign. But here, we're doing something else. Just wanted you guys to see the difference when we have equal sign and when we have symbols like this. For the symbol like this, if we have y less than this one, which is this one, right? It would be the lower part. The solution should be the lower part of your y because it's less than, okay? So that's our line for that equation. So it would be the lower part of that line, right? Now, for this one, it says all the y greater than or equal to this line. All greater than. So all the y's greater would be above. Greater means above. So I'm going to draw it with a different color. So it's going to be here. Right? Now, remember that I told you the solution for inequality is the double shaded area. Which part is a double shaded area? It's this part. I'm going to draw a different color. So this part is my double shaded area. So that part is my solution. Got it? Okay, let's move to how to talk about properties of exponent. Okay, zero property. Anything raised to the zero power equals to 1. For example, x to the 0 equals 1. 2 to the 0 equals 1. Negative property, rewritten as the reciprocal and becomes, wake up on the other side. So it will be and becomes, okay, so rewritten as the reciprocal and becomes positive. What do I mean by that? Okay, so if I have x to the power of negative 1, it will be a reciprocal, so it would be 1 over x to the power of 1. It become positive. Okay? Multiplication property. Multiply the coefficient, add the exponent. Okay, what do I mean? So I have 2 to the third times 2 to the fourth. When I have these two that multiplied to each other, I will written down as 2 and then 3 plus 4, which is 2 to the power of 7. Power property, rewritten in expanded form, then use the multiplication property. Okay, division property is divide the coefficient and then subtract the exponent. Well, I'm going to show you here what we're talking about. So the let's talk about this one. So negative 3x to the power of negative 2, y to the power of 3, z to the power of 1. Okay, so this one we know is 1. This one is just y to the power of third, but this one is negative. So that means it should go down. So this one should go down to the bottom one. Okay? So I'm going to rewrite it this way. Negative 3 y to the third. 1 is 1. I can't just ignore it because it doesn't matter. And then x to the power of negative 2 goes to the bottom and becomes positive. Remember? Becomes positive. So the answer is negative 3 y to the third over x to the power of 2. Now these two. We do have a parenthesis multiply another parenthesis. So basically you can just multiply the like terms. Okay? So 4 times negative 2 x to the power of 4 times x to the power of 3, and then y to the power of 2 multiply y to the power of 6. Am I right? Okay, so 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. When we have two that they're multiplied, the same one, like here, you just add the power. So it would be x to the power of 7. These two the same, so y to the power of 8. 2 plus 6 is 8. That would be your answer. Now, if we have power to the power, remember, power property. You just multiply this 2 to every single one of these powers here. Okay? And you raise this one too. Okay? That power goes to every single one of them and rewritten as this. 5 to the power of 2, x to the power of 4 to the power of 2, and y to the power of 3 to the power of 2. Okay? 5 to the power of 2 is 25. Well, I'm going to put it over here, 25. And then x to the power of 4 to the power of 2. So that will multiply, so it would be x to the power of 8. Y to the power of 3 to the power of 2. 2 times 3 is 6. So it would be y to the 6. Now here, the last one, 8x to the power of 8, y to the power of 2, all over 12x to the power of 3, y to the power of 5. Okay, when we have division, we subtract the like terms. So basically we have 8 divided by 12. And then we have x to the 8 over x to the third, and I'm just separating them, right? So 8 divided by 12, if you put it in your calculator and simplify it, right? Let's say you have calculator, clear it, you have alpha y, and you have 8 over 12. When you click enter, it will simplify it for you, okay? Don't waste time during the STAAR test. So it is 2 over 3 for the first one. So I have 2 over 3. Then for division, you subtract the power. So it would be x to the power of 8 minus 3. And then time y to the power of 2 minus 5. So it would be 2/3 of, let's just put the 3 in the bottom for all of them. X to the power of 8 minus 3 is 5. So x to the power of 5. And then y to the power of negative 3. We don't leave a negative power. So what should I do here? Remember, I said when we have a negative, something like this, when we have a negative power, we do the reciprocal and it becomes positive. So I'm going to rewrite it over here. It is going to be 3 in the bottom, 2 on top. X to the 5 is fine because the power is positive. Then this one would go down and it becomes positive. So that would be the final answer for it. Let's do the next page. We talked about this a lot recently, which is quadratic function attributes. So the key features for it is axis of symmetry. Let's do this. Axis of symmetry. Which is this line. Let me show you better. Which is this line. And the x equals to that point that it crosses the x-axis. So this one, the equation for it is x equals x value of vertex. What is the vertex? Is this point. So this is the vertex. And the value for that one, which is 2, the x value of that one would be your x equals to that one, okay? So that would be your symmetry. So for example, here is x equals 2. Now, this point, for this case, it's a minimum. And it's minimum at what? What is this point? -4. The vertex coordinate for it is 2 and -4. Now, over here is your y-intercept. And it's at this coordinate over here. This point here and that point here is your x-intercept. Or they call it 0, or they call it roots, or they call it solution. They call it a lot of names, okay? But they're all means it's your x-intercept, okay? X-intercepts are also called, I just told you, roots, zeros, and also solutions. Okay? Let's talk about some factoring using I method, remember? So, over here, first thing we need to do, find the GCD. How do we find the GCD? We go over here, we do math, we do number, we go all the way down to number 9, and we have GCD. So you put your greatest number and lowest number in there. 13, I can tell you it's 1 already. So it's 1. Whenever you get 1, you know you don't have any greatest common factor instead of 1. So you leave it right there. But I just wanted to refresh your mind of how you can find GCD or GCF. Okay, so you will draw your I method or I. AC goes here, so we better show which one is A, which one is B, and which one is C. Oops, sorry. Right? Okay. So AC goes on top. So A times C is negative 30. Goes on top. And then B goes in the bottom, which is negative 13. Then you take a look at this one and see if it's negative. All the factors that go on this part should be negative. What am I talking about? Let's go ahead and grab your calculator again. So for finding your table, you go ahead and first clear it. You go ahead and you do this A times C, which is negative 30, divided by X. We did this a lot, so you should remember that. Then you do second graph to be able to see your table. Right? Then we said if the B is negative, then we're only looking at the negative values of the negative 30 factor. So for example, if you go up a little bit, you see that these values on top is positive. We don't care about those. We only start from error and we look at the negative values on the second column. So the first number is, just going to leave it over there. The first factor of negative 30 is 1 and negative 30. 2 and negative 15. Oh, I found the numbers that I needed. Why? Because I know that's the reason we put the B over here. Because after I found the factor of negative 30, then I have to see which one of these two numbers adds up and give me B. So 2 and negative 15 is negative 13. So that's the number that I'm looking for. Then I'll say these two numbers divided by A. What is my A? 5. So negative 15 divided by 5 and 2 divided by 5. Then I have to see if I can simplify it more. Yes, negative 15 over 5 is negative 3 over 1. I found both of my fractions. I always leave it as a fraction, okay, because I need it. So I'll draw my two parentheses, put my X in there, and then I'll take the bottom number or denominator before X and numerator or the top number after X. So 5x plus 2, 1x or x, I'm just going to put 1x minus 3. There you go. I factored my equation here. Okay? Let's move on to solving it. So, whenever we're solving, right? Whenever we're solving, we have to make that equation equal to 0. Always has to be equal to 0. And when they're saying solving, they're always looking for x or x-intercept or zeros or whatever you want to call it, like any of these names. So when they say solve this, you simply come over here and put you do this. You say, okay, first I have to solve this and make it equal to 0. How do I do that? I subtract negative 4 from both sides. Therefore, I would have 2x squared